And you know what? No stone walls allowed in round 1 of Golden League. So if you ram rush them, there's no way they can stop you. Ah, we figured it out. Okay, let's move away from that quickly. Something that we will likely see in round 1 of Golden League 2 is one of the Golden League 2 maps. And well, we've got two faces that are hoping to make an appearance there. Kiwiin, who has been a little bit AWOL for a while, back on the grind, has been practicing with a bunch of people. Maybe he's going to turn up. Maybe we finally see him. For those unaware of who Kiwiin is, he used to go by the name Top. He was a very talented StarCraft 2 player. Made the conversion into Age of Empires 4 in the early days. Mongol main, as you do back then. And then kind of disappeared. I don't know if this was one of those cases like mandatory military service, because I think he's Korean, and I know that's one of the countries that has that. Maybe my mind's just on that because we were talking about it earlier, but he was gone for a while. Glad to see he's back at it, though, and it looks like he's been scrimming with Snooper, our Aussie boy from down under. Always a pleasure to watch some Snooper gameplay, especially if it's not a Civ that's going to build 1 million villages and try to win with only Abbasid peasants. Instead, he's gone for the Ottomans this time in the yellow. But we do still get the Abbasids on the other side in the purple. And, well, curious to see how these openings are going to play out, because Snooper has the opportunity to be really annoying at the beginning of this game, as the Ottomans do actually quite like the idea of building spears, especially quite a lot of them early on a map like this, due to the fact that most players are trying to shift out their base quickly onto these ponds to get those juicy gathering rates on the shoreline fish. So far, Kiwiin hasn't done that. Kiwiin, of course, is playing as the Abbasids, so he does get a superior gathering rate on these berry bushes, putting them up actually around the rate of deer, actually in excess of that, because it's what, 0.66 plus 30%. So you're actually looking at, I think it's like you end up being a 0.85, something like that. Pretty respectable gathering rate. Slightly better than deer. It's not going to be your shoreline fish, but it is going to be safe is the point. And you could choose to kind of contest the early spearmen from the Ottomans because your spearmen are better. But your goal in this matchup, I think, as an Abbasid player, is to not get baited into a spear-and-spear engagement. Because the Ottomans will always come over the top of their archers that are superior to yours, simply because of the meta and the way they bang their drums. So let's think about mid-game plans, like after openings. Like Kiwiin is likely trying to just play up towards secondary TC, probably extend out onto the deer site, which would protect his back gold as well and give access to additional berries. For the Ottoman player, you're probably trying to be more aggro, right? Like you want to try and get to that archer ball we talked about. I think there is a few options. Snooper could think about playing that archer mass in Feudal, or he could try to rush castle. But there's probably a little bit of paranoia around map control requirements, right? He might be paranoid that Kiwiin will go for a play onto the shoreline fish, which would make a lot of sense. The alternative is, if you see your opponent isn't playing water at all, you could just drop the docks yourself and gradually make your way up to castle. To open up with, we are going to see the Minaret Madrasa. Take a little note here, by the way. This is the best spot to place a Madrasa around your TC. By placing it on this side like Snooper's doing, he ensures that his villagers gathering on the berry bushes can instantly move into safety. Also means if archers come into harass, they'd have to dive into TC range to start attacking the gathering villages. So always a good idea to place the Madrasa on the southeast side of your town center. I know some people don't like this, so I'm going to do the 2 times for the first few minutes. Because we've got quite a quiet opening. Kind of expected. Like, until the patch arrives, Abbasid players don't really have as many kind of crazy, wacky, aggressive openings, I think, to play around. They're still a bit more kind of standardized passive opening, I'd say. Especially if they're up against any sort of tempo-aggressive civ like the Ottomans, the French, Delhi, even English. Tech up complete, we'll now be able to get the response out. Now, he's happy to go into the racks because, you know, you're probably going to need a few of them anyway against at least the metas, and your spearmen are superior to that of the Ottomans. We're wasting a lot of time there just chasing away that one spear. Kind of a nuisance for him. Good strike that time. I think that's what he's got to do, except 1 or 2 pokes onto you and then just try to whittle into them. Try and remain efficient on your gathering. The rack's up, he will be able to get spears out to counter now. In the meantime, Snooper, who has now teched up, is going to be playing the Archer Rangers. This gets enabled by the fact that Kiwiin made this play. The fact that he went into the racks like this makes me curious as to whether he's planning to try and hop, skip, jump into castle and just push men at arms. Doesn't really feel great long-term to have built these spears when you know archers are coming anyway. Probably just feels like it's the cheapest solution to block out the issue in the meantime. If you go archers, sure, they can seem great at first, but you know, you're not really going to bring them back around into the castle age. I think the men-at-arms play makes more sense if he wants to rush castle here. Stev looks like he's going to play a little bit longer in the feudal, going into the horseman now. Only one archer range so far from Snooper. He's not revealing too much about his intent just yet. The meta has hit the field. This meta will make it a problem for Kiwian, considering there's more spearmen still coming as well. So very difficult for him to try and punish this early tempo aggression out of Snooper. The second TC is being set up exactly where we talked about on the deer stack. Right in the deer stack, in fact, so he gets optimal gatherings. The meta coming in. Actually, maybe the ideal time if it wasn't distracted by the wolf. So doesn't immediately go onto the villages. Looks like this should be a free up with no villies lost, maybe one possibly. The meta killed off. Horsemen, in the meantime, have chased away the archers because there's no spearmen here. So great reactions on both sides by Kiwian. Minimizes the losses and pushes the opponent entirely back. An opponent who has already committed to the second military school, has not gone onto the fishing either. So doesn't really look like Snooper is thinking about castle age rushing or maybe going for some weird kind of second TC build. He's even thinking about using his map control to take harder to reach resources. And the problem he now has is because Kiwian has gone in for the horseman, it's less likely that he can actually now go into this kind of pocket eco play that you usually see out of the tempo aggressive side. Kiwian, I don't think he goes for more than 2 TCs. We're probably looking at a castle age rush now. Just get enough troops out to be a little bit annoying and keep your opponent at bay. Then respect the nature of this matchup, where Eureka is just going to be superior, and you should be able to unlock that castle age timing much quicker. Now, looks like we're going to stretch things out. So, actually into double archer range plus the stables. Interesting choice here, actually. Looks like Kiwian might be considering an all-in. Like, considering the way that he's layering his base, he's setting up, this is not the signs of someone who's thinking castle age is a possibility. He'd need to do substantial damage now. Horseman. We'll give him advantage here. Now, the meta does allow you to kind of be a bit more efficient with your exchanges. But when you're up against horsemen like this, it doesn't really do enough. The problem you do have if you're Kiwian is with small clumps like this, the meta is quite tanky. So considering the meta is at the back of the formation, instead of actually striking the unit you want to kill these archers, you're wasting time going after a chunky boy with 180 health. That's why Snoop is able to stabilize. I mean, even this, like the wraparound, like if you just put the meta in the right position, these horsemen don't do anything. I do think Kiwian got a bit baited here. It's kind of weird because if you don't rush out your base like that, you just continue on this course, your economy is just going to take you ahead. But now, when you take poor trades like this, you're just allowing Snooper to build up that passive lead that you get off of the free units you're producing. And now, because Snooper feels confident, we're going to see him move out for the shoreline fish in the center. And this is really important, by the way, because I think Snooper's intent becomes a little bit clearer here. Not only is he going for a TC drop in the center, but he's probably going to try to flirt this idea of not too much military. Enough to keep Kiwian contained, and then think about castle yourself. Meanwhile, Kiwian just gets kind of more in for a penny, in for a pound here, as he now goes into Camel Archer to try and counter out the metas. I'm a little bit worried about how quickly he's going to drain his initial resources. Like, Kiwian actually has a very good position for defense, right? Like, his resources aren't really exposed. His goals on the backside, deer stack TC, well protected, wood line in between both. There's not many places where Snooper can freely strike. But the flip side of this is that Kiwian hasn't actually taken an exhaustive amount of resources from the map. So he's in a situation where he's probably got to fight tooth and nail away from the comfort of his base to get access to anything new. In the meantime, the strike around the backside was so quick from Snooper. Find a few villages for his trouble. Now remember, Snooper's goal here, he's intentionally trying to draw attention to the backside of the base. This is actually very crafty. Most players would be super paranoid about what he's done here because of now what's happening, how you can be cut off. But Snooper's goal is to just draw attention to Kiwian's base in the backside, which will allow him to build his town center and fish successfully in the center. Archers trade out metas. Outnumbered, but the drummer boy is making this a bit more of an even fight. It's still going to be a win for Kiwian, but Snooper at least gets a little bit better of an exchange than he should have otherwise. He'll look to make his way out with the rest. In the meantime, second wave should be being prepped. I mean, Snooper, he's not in a position to rush Castle Age here. He's doubled down on what he's done. Second town center is up in the center at least. Looks like most of the deer have already been exhausted. Nicely played by Snooper. Notice what he's done here. He's getting his meta away. And why is he moving so fast? It's this cool trick you can do. He's clicked for his meta to go somewhere else on the map, and then he's selected another unit, and then given them a second waypoint afterwards with a shift click. And that means that the meta registers as in a formation, and why it's running so fast away. There we go. And now he's no longer in the formation. So 1.88 to 2.16. It's actually absurd how easy it is to manipulate this. Snooper's doing a great job of it as well. Just constantly moving, but hang around for a second too long there. So pricey loss there of the meta. Now the forward little extension, the pocket eco, is going to be burnt down. Kiwi all of a sudden in a pretty strong position here with the mass feudal. Snooper, what are we doing here? Okay, he respects it. Snooper realizes he's not strong enough yet. Great read by Kiwi to go on the offensive, though. Like, he's built a lot into feudal here. Snooper, I think the awkward issue here is he sends in the meta with the Sipahi and the archers, when really all he needed was the meta and the Sipahi to strike that back line. If he'd done just that and left the archers somewhere safe, probably would have got out with the army. Instead, he had to reset to 0, and now in a situation where he's close to being tripled up in terms of military. Now it's his turn to feel the sting. Heavy sting at that. Should be able to shut down a lot of the home economy. Now remember, Kiwi does not know about the shoreline fish in the center. That's still a safe resource for Snooper. Snooper needs to be careful about which fights he chooses to take here. Still heavily outnumbered. Will force the TC dive. Metas will look, or Spyro will look to clash. No meta in play here though. Just trying to stand their ground. Just needs to trade out as much as he can here. Most of the spearmen are gone, so the Sipahi should be able to re-engage. And the second wave has discovered the town center. And Snooper, his ace up the sleeve is no longer that. So Kiwi now knows about the extension TC. He's still got some good idle time force in the base of Snooper, and Kiwi is now heading up into Castle Age. Snooper at risk of easily being wiped out here. Archer masses are just going to exchange. There's still no meta to give an attack speed buffer over to the Ottomans. And after that army's thrown away, Snooper's forward eco that he set up is going to be fully exposed. Remember, Kiwi, he set up a decent amount of military production buildings, so we'll be ready to push out the premium Castle Age unit soon, even setting up the farms in the meantime. So Kiwi, not like to risk himself too much. Still has access to plenty of fish and berries as he's securing the area of the wood. This wood wall's up. I mean, Snooper's now got a really big problem. Like, he doesn't actually have a way of easily reaching Castle Age because he's paranoid. By the time he sees the tech up, the way the Abbasids function is, and it's kind of the like double-edged sword, right? Is like they will take a long time to tech up because they can't force it faster like other civs. But when they do complete the tech up, they've usually built a ridiculous surplus of resources, because when other civs would use 8, 10, 12, 16, whatever it is, villages to build up their tech, the Abbasids don't. So that means for almost 2 minutes, you've had, let's say on average, you're going to have 10 people teching you up at this stage. You've had 10 villages gathering for almost 2 minutes, which means you've actually received probably around 750 extra resources. 725, 750 extra resources. That's nothing to turn your nose up at. That can be additional military infrastructure if you need it. That can be a few extra lancers prepped at the beginning of the tech up, or camel archers. Options are there with the way that Kiwi set himself up, and he did make his way up with the military wing, so likely we're going to be shifting into mass spearmen, archers, or crossbows here. In fact, it's just going to be the Q and the mass men-at-arms. Understandable, right? There's no counter out, there's no armor piercer just yet. Wonder if he's going to add more racks in, though. Only one alone just feels a little bit pitiful. Would love to see him just actually prep crossbows ahead of time. It means that Snooper has no answer as the game goes on. It's kind of crazy, like when you're in this type of position, if you're able to mass men-at-arms and crossbows, you essentially completely cripple your opponent from having a way back in. Like, what would you do if you're in that situation with Snooper, right? Like, maybe you could try to get siege out, but, you know, even the Imperial Armory, you're not going to get that quick, so you have to pay for it otherwise. Speaking of the Imperial Armory, that is now in the way. So is Kiwi. Second army being built up. Still only 2 TCs, but he really doesn't need more at this stage. Does need to get access to the shoreline fish, though. That's the thing he's really missing right now. Snooper is quickly exhausting. Downside for Snooper is he's burnt through the shoreline fish pack so quickly that he's now going to move further away, which means he's not going to have a safety point to garrison in. Kiwian. Biding time. Lancers added in, the crossbows we talked about, even the men-at-arms, so getting everything, every box ticked. And also now looking to pick up the relics also. I think a cool kind of recovery play for Snooper would be to invest in the imam point. So he gets 2 imams spawning at his TC, and he can move them out now to pick up relics, but looks like he's not interested in it. It's kind of unfortunate, because I think he's going to miss out on a lot of gold as this game goes on as a result of that, because there's likely going to be at least 3 relics for Kiwian, if not more. The timing couldn't be worse for Snooper. Tech up complete, and that should tick the box. Kiwian will move in. Torch army is ready. I mean, this TC's gone. Walls did not go up. Meta is not here with the Sipahi to rush in faster. The Sipahi will make their way in anyway. Still, Town Center gone in exchange. Doesn't feel very good here. These Sipahi can be quite annoying in the backside here. Like, there's not a quick army to respond, and you aren't building spears, you're only building men-at-arms. But once they're cleaned up, Snooper has to have a strong force for a frontal fight. His flank attacks are going to get more difficult with these walls now going up. In fairness to him, the Sipahi are getting decent value here. There's no textiles, so these villages don't last very long. Farms have been stretched out everywhere by the Abasa player, though. The center is still guarded. Now, the unfortunate part for Kiwian is he doesn't know about the shoreline fish. I'm very surprised by Kiwian's actions here. Like, he just saw that there's a TC here, he blew it up. He can see the shoreline fish are gone, but he isn't actually looking for the nearby economy. 14 villages just being flatlined like this is no small feat, right? Like, you'd actually take out, what, a fifth of Snooper's economy with that play? Just 2 Lancers could achieve it. Like, you could easily peel off the Lancers here and not worry about the rest of the army being attacked. Instead, Snooper lives to fight another day. Villager force on the way, though, and Kiwian going in for an aggro keep drop. To see if he can do it. It's not going to be easy. Snooper, his standing army is quickly amassing. The villagers have moved forward to the main army. We'll have to shift back. Flash will come out. Enough Lancers here to tank for the front line for the moment, but Spearman now shifting over the side. He needs to cancel this. He needs to stop the keep from going up. The recommitment, Kiwian has the number advantage, has the desirable position, and it feels like Snooper has no way of stopping either the main fight from going against him or the castle from going up. I mean, honestly, I don't know how you stop this at all. He's got the first knight coming out, but you just feel like you're outnumbered in these situations. You can definitely put a dent in the eco count, but Kiwian should get his castle. Should get his staging point. Feels even worse in this situation when you see mass spears. I mean, the crossbows can't counter either. Snooper sees no way back. Kiwian will get the GG with the aggro keep drop. Great play from the ambassadors to play that long feudal into the castle age. Stick Snooper 6 feet under.